So, joining us for this fireside chat is Sarah Olubunmi. She's mastered seven roles, aced 6 promotions, and navigated 2 career changes, all within a 5-year journey at Multiverse. She is also the newly appointed chair of the Black Multiverse ERG. And for those who don't know, ERG stands for Employee Resource Group. All right. And she's going to talk to us a bit about her journey and the incredible work at Multiverse. By the way, I heard that there's a bit of a watch party happening at Multiverse. Can you guys just give us a quick shout out if you're here from Multiverse? Hey, hey. Woo, woo. Feeling the energy in the room. Sarah, they're here for you. They're not here for me. I'm just here for Bants. They're here for you. So lovely Multiverse team. Let's get into this conversation. So this conversation is going to unlock insights into career development, exploring themes around role diversification, gearing up for promotions, and making those major career moves. Whether you're plotting your next career move or just curious, hopefully this chat will be your golden ticket. Oh my gosh, what a preamble. Hey, hey, hats off to me. Round of applause. Okay. I'm done. So, Sarah, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good, but I feel like that was such a epic intro. Like, who are you talking about? You talking about me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
happy
good.
to be here.
You're doing stuff. You're doing stuff. But let's get into this conversation if that's okay, yeah? So, can you share a brief overview of your career journey at Multiverse so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Multiverse about 5 years ago. So August 2019, as a business coach. So prior to that, I had done the Teach First program. I was a teacher. I taught English, GCSE, and A level. So as a business coach, I was sort of delivering, I guess, on the front line, right, working directly with our apprentices. And then about 18 months later, I got my first promotion and became a manager, and started heading up the business and accounting programs. And then I sort of worked internally with our GTM team, our learning team, and launched a new program, which led to my next big promotion to senior manager, heading up our new digital business program. And at this time, I grew the team from 7 to 25 in 6 months. So you can imagine how many interviews that I was doing.
Mm.
And then also expanded my remit to take on the digital marketing program. So at this point, I kind of positioned myself as a leader and expert in all things like career starters, which for those of you who don't know is basically early talent. And also driving operational excellence within my team. And in 2023, just last year, my remit was further expanded and I became head of career starter programs with an org of about 50 people. But then towards the end of 2023, I felt like I was ready to take on a new challenge. And you're probably thinking oh, what's more challenging than that? And so I decided to kind of step away from our delivery team and move into our tech team. And I moved into the product team, and I work for one of our pillars called the Enabler, which is basically the pillar that focuses on, I guess, building tech and product solutions for our coaches, or enablers, as we like to call them. So that's a whistle stop tour. That's 5 years in I don't know, 2 minutes.
Yo, I'm sweating already. That's just Oh, you've had a journey and a half. I hope everyone just felt the breadth of that through that brief preamble and of what she's done, that whistle stop tour. But let's dive into that a bit. So you were in one business unit and you switched to tech. So why did you decide to make a career change into tech? And if possible, when talking about that, could you talk a bit about the actual how and tips on how to
Yeah.
make that career move?
I think I want to kind of make a distinction in your question. My journey or my career in tech didn't start 6 months ago when I moved to product. And I think it's important to make that distinction because often when people think about tech careers, they think about more technical roles. So I would say my journey in tech started 5 years ago when I joined Multiverse. And I wasn't at the time, I wasn't oh, I want a career in tech. It was very much similar to the conversation I had with myself towards the tail end of last year, which is I'm ready for a new challenge. I made a lot of impact in the classroom, and I wanted to make an impact in education beyond the classroom, and didn't think there would be a job or opportunity that would afford me the chance to do that until I discovered Multiverse. At the time, it was called White Hat. That's a bit of a throwback for anyone who joined at that time. So Multiverse was kind of I moved into tech because of multiverse versus because I wanted to work for a tech company, essentially. So it just ended up being kind of like the perfect move for me.
Got it. Wow. I love how you kind of you led that with mission first in a way. You know, you said
Yeah.
patient specifically.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was at university, someone gave me some advice and they were like, get really good at what you love and then you'll make loads of money doing what you love. And so like that was always the drive, like, okay, what do I care about? And is there a career in this for me? How can I get really good at it? And obviously make loads of money. I'm not saying that that's the sole reason, but like it's a driver, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that's kind of, yeah, been my mantra. Get really good at what you love and then it will help you get the career that you want.
I love that. I love that. And it'll also line your pockets as well. So everyone, if you're enjoying this
I feel
conversation,
like I should have said that because now I feel like we're going to lead with that. And I'm like,
don't
so moving
worry.
on, Amina.
We have a strong crowd of people. I think they understand. But if any of you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we move along as well, and we'll get to them at the end of this discussion. So, what have been the key career development strategies that have helped you along the way, Sarah?
I would say like, if I was to narrow it down, like perhaps there's like five things I would say. It sounds like a lot, but hear me out. I think the first one is like be really intentional about your development and take ownership of it. I think sometimes we can fall victim to letting development happen to us, whether it's like in the cyclical nature of development at our companies and what have you, as opposed to thinking like, what is it I want to get good at, or what are my ambitions and like what steps do I need to take to get there?
Mm,
The second thing I would say is like be confident and have audacity. And what I mean by that is just like believe that you deserve to take up space. I think some of the things that hold us back from developing in our careers is because we just don't feel like this is a role we can do, or like people like us or people like me or someone, with my experience can't do this thing. So like being confident and having audacity, I think really helps. The next thing I would say is build relationships. Every opportunity I've had has been, off the back of a relationship, whether it's like making a connection or like, saying, oh, I think you should take on this opportunity because like based on like what I know you're good at and what I know you're passionate about, I think this would be a good thing to take on. The next thing I would say, and I kind of alluded to this earlier when I talked about my sort of like progression journey at Multiverse, is to basically become an expert in your domain area. And it sounds really silly, but just be good at your job. This is like the foundation of a successful career. People sort of like need to rely on the fact that you're going to deliver, that you're going to, do a good job. And this doesn't mean being perfect. And I think it's important to make that distinction. This doesn't mean like, everything, you get everything right all of the time. But this just means that like you're consistently good and also you have a commitment to like doing your best work as well. And I think linked to that, the final thing is like one of the kind of career development strategies I've used in terms of like how to progress and move to the next level is like delivering value for your business. And I think a huge unlock to like delivering value is understanding how your role contributes to the overall business goals and objectives of your company. As soon as you start to understand that, then you can think strategically about how you drive that forward whilst also driving your like career forward too.
okay, wow, yeah. And some shots were fired there. Be good at your job. Some people in the chat, I don't know.
No shots being
I
fired.
don't know. But no, I'm loving those tips. I'm loving those tips. I want to challenge you a bit though. So
Okay.
lots of people actually choose to move companies when they're developing their careers. You stayed in the same one. So
Yeah.
for you, what are the benefits of sticking with one company, and why did you choose to do that route rather than switching it up?
Yeah, I mean, I can only really speak on my journey, right? Because like there are lots of reasons people move companies, whether it's like something that they've chosen or something that just happened because of the circumstances they find themselves in. But I think for me, like one of the kind of key reasons like I've stayed at Multiverse for the last 5 years is because I feel a deep connection with our mission and the work we're doing. And even though sort of like the journey towards that mission has like evolved and shifted over the past 5 years, like it still feels like we're heading in that direction. And actually it feels we used to talk about this thing in like our all hands like years ago, like the big hairy audacious goal. And like, I used to think about this as this thing that's like so intangible that we'll never get. And it's like each year I've been here, it feels like we feel like we're moving closer to that. And I
Mm.
feel like it's quite like special to be part of something. It doesn't feel like this all the day, right? I'm not gonna gas it up until like every single day I wake up feeling deeply connected with our mission. But I think for the most part I do, and then that's the thing that's like kept me here. And earlier as well, I spoke about like, doing what you love, get really good at it, and make a career out of that. I feel like I've continued to have opportunities at Multiverse to do what I love. And I just feel like, one of the drivers behind staying or still being here is that like I said, I'm like still connected to what we're doing. I'm still along for the ride, but
Mm.
also I feel like I still have a lot to gain, as well. So I think, yeah, that's kind of why I've decided to stay to advance my career as opposed to like looking elsewhere or moving elsewhere.
Wow. I think what you said hopefully spoke to a couple of people, right? Because sometimes I think we get lost in the rush a bit of just more, 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 but really it's about aligning yourself long term with the career that you're trying to get
Yeah,
into and staying the course.
for sure. And sometimes that looks like staying where you are, and
Mm.
sometimes that looks like moving elsewhere. I think it's just like making that individual assessment, for yourself and talking to other people who've journeyed that and kind of getting their perspective as well.
Brilliant. Oh my gosh. Too many gems. Too many gems. Okay. You have been in a few roles, as we've said, right? How have you tackled the challenge of adapting to new roles? Because I'm sure, some of these roles you didn't necessarily fill out the whole job description, right? So how did you go about adapting to these new roles?
I think the biggest challenge has been like the current change I've made.
Okay.
And I think I want to start by saying I'm still tackling that challenge, right? And I think most people are when they make a move or when they progress, because sometimes, you're in the same career path, but taking on a new role comes with new responsibilities and new challenges.
Mm,
I think there's probably three things I've learned on this journey and still learning. The first one is like being coachable and having humility. Being coachable, I think is quite self-explanatory of like, taking on feedback, being willing to learn. But the humility part was like something that actually I didn't think about before the journey, but I learned on the journey.
mm,
Having come from like a different role where my role was just different, right? I was a manager of people and teams, and now like, as a product manager, you manage products, right? It's just different. And so I think the humility of recognizing that it's a different role that requires different things of me.
mm,
And I'm gonna get things wrong. There's things I just don't know yet. There's things that are like still work in progress. So yeah, being coachable and having humility is, I think, really key. And attached to that is being kind to myself. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to like get things right.
mm.
Um, and like, to learn quickly. No one ever said learn quickly, but I think it's just something that's developed. And I think even though, there's some days where I'm like, did I make the right decision? Am I good enough to do this? And I think each day, like, some days are really easy and I'm like, oh, I love this. I'm basically a product manager. I mean, I am a product manager, but like, I'm like, this is, do you know what I mean? And then some
Yeah.
days I'm like, what is happening? Often in like the days when we're like in backlog refinement and all the engineers are talking, I'm like, I have no idea what's happening here. But I think I just make a conscious effort each day to like just try and give it my best, whatever that looks like that day. And then the final thing I would say is like just like building resilience because it is going to be a bit hard. When you do anything new or anything for the first time, it's going to feel hard,
Yeah.
right? And just like trusting that like that isn't a sign that it's like the wrong decision. That's just like it just means what it is that it's hard.
Okay. Oof. Remember, people, salvation lies on the other side of fear. So fight through the fear.
I mean,
Understand?
I just feel like you have these quotes, you have a quote bag just like there, you're just like spewing them out.
Is it right? Boom.
I feel like you're the one who's spitting gem today, actually.
Nah, this has been an incredible conversation. I hope people are definitely taking something from it. Again, if you have questions, we're going to come to the end of the conversation soon, so please put them in the chat. And if you're interested in a job role with Multiverse as well, I believe there will be a format for you close to the end of the session, so please feel free to fill that in. So, okay, Sarah, can I ask, what advice would you give to someone looking for promotion within their current role?
Um, I would say the first thing is like, I mean, this isn't a first thing, there's no particular order, but one of the things that comes to mind when I think about my own journey is like, mentorship and leveraging peer relationships. I always say pair, but it's peer relationship. Um, so what I mean by this is like, you know, a lot of the times the job we're going for, someone has done it before or something adjacent, something similar. And so like reaching out to your network, reaching out to people, having conversations, and mentoring doesn't always just take the form of like you meet with someone once a month. You can be really intentional. There's been times where I've gone to someone and say, hey, like I've got this goal in the next 12 months to get to this point.
Mm.
And in fact, my first ever mentor I got before I became a manager, like I went to her and I was like, hey, it was a talk like this, and she was like, the importance of mentorship. And I said to her, hey, on the topic of that, and again, it comes from being audacious and shooting your shot. And I was basically like to her, this is my goal over the next 12 months. Like, this is what I want to get to. I have admired like your leadership approach, and I want to learn X, Y things from you. Like, I would love to have sessions, like mentoring sessions with you. Go away and have a think about it, and like let me know what your thoughts are. Perhaps we should have an initial conversation. And the
Mm.
thing is, the worst thing people say is no, right? And the best thing they say is yes. So I would say like mentorships is one of them. I think the second thing is like just around like being innovative and solution focused on my approach to work. Like, and it's something I'm having to like relearn again, because one of the things about being in learner mode is sometimes you're going to the default of like, oh, I don't know this, and it's okay that I don't know this. And whilst that's true, like I think one of the things that I need to remember to do is like be innovative and solution focused. Like it's all right to identify the problem, but also think about like how might you solve that problem. Um, and I think a big step in terms of like getting promoted is like look at the skills or the experience or competencies that are needed at that role you're hoping to get, and like do a bit of a skills assessment. Like I've got these ones or these competencies I'm able to like demonstrate that I can do, and these ones I need a little bit of help with. Like talk to your manager, talk to people, your mentor, and try and build up that experience level. And the final thing I'll say is like let your manager and or leaders around you know that you're working towards a promotion. People always get shy talking about it, but if you don't say anything, how is anyone going to know?
Mm.
Leaders spend a lot of time, planning capacity and doing succession planning, thinking about what the business needs and like who are the people positioned to help the business get there. So if your manager doesn't know that you have an aspiration to like reach this goal, like they can't really support you in getting there, or you can't leverage their support fully. So I would say like just like have an honest conversation, like, hey, I really want to like work towards this goal.
Mm.
I've done again, demonstrate that proactivity. Like I've looked at the skills required for that level. This is what I think it is. This is where I think I'm at. Like, are you aligned? And I think it also opens up another conversation around development too.
No, I love that. I specifically love what you just said about, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to get a bit scared when it comes to approaching their manager saying, oh, I want to go up to the next level. But how you prepare for that is exactly what you said in going and looking at that job description. Look at the fire you're about to engage in before you pour water on it, right? So,
Yeah, for sure. But also like don't be that person who like never delivers their work on time, isn't really proactive in the team in the meeting, and then rock up to your one-to-one with your manager and say, hey, I'm looking for a promotion. Like, don't be that person, right? Like, I think, it shouldn't feel like a shock to them, like a
mm,
complete shock. It should be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm glad that you're taking ownership of your development. I'm glad that you're like, being clear and transparent about what you want, but it shouldn't be a shock to them. They should be like, oh, really? You want a promotion? That's great to know. Could afford me. Like so you want it to feel like something that they feel aligned with
mm.
as well, even if they're not necessarily aligned on the timeline or the skills gaps. Like it shouldn't feel like a surprise to them that you're wanting to progress, because your behaviors and how you deliver your work has been an indication up until this point that this is something that you want.
Okay, wow. This has been an amazing conversation. We're going into the last question right now. I hope everyone's enjoyed the conversation. We talked about a bit, but when it comes to mentorship, shoot your shot. So you're seeing some people here, they're probably on LinkedIn too. Shoot your shot. Respectfully, shoot your shot. Okay. So now the last question I have here, Sarah. How do you approach the challenge of maintaining work-life balance amidst all these career transitions and processes and movements and future planning? How do you approach work-life balance?
I think maintaining work-life balance just generally is hard. And for a long time, I struggled with it because I think my job became my identity, especially like I told you, I joined in 2019. We
Yeah.
all know what happened in 2020. And so everything was just like centered around work, making banana bread and going on daily walks. So like there was nothing else, you know what I mean? It was like my career
Yeah, I
or
get you. Yeah.
nothing, right? And so I think during that time I became such tunnel vision. And I'm fortunate enough to like love my job and the career like that I've built so far.
Mm.
But it isn't who I am. And I think the best way to kind of like maintain balance is by being someone and building a life outside of work. Like you can love your job and really care about it, but like it shouldn't necessarily define everything about who you are. And I think for a long time for me it did. And so what that meant is that like if I was doing really like well at work, I'd feel really happy. And if things were hard, I would like it would be really challenging. Which is natural, right? But I think decoupling like who you are and what you do helps a little bit. It's definitely easier said than done. But when you kind of, especially when I think, and this is probably to multiverses, they can resonate. When you work for a company that you really care about the mission and it's like go, 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 and it feels like imminent, you know, you feel like I need to just like, I need to go all in. Like I need to like burn the midnight oil. But like, do you really need to burn the midnight oil? I think, you know, you can give your best at work, but also invest in yourself. Like the two don't have to it doesn't have to be one at the expense of another.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like actual tangible, because I get it's all nice to say that, right? I'm sure people feel like, oh yeah, like that's great. But like in terms of actual tips that I've used that have helped, I would say is like setting really clear goals for the week is really helpful. And whenever I block out like focus time or time for like deep work, I always set an agenda. So like at the beginning of the week or the week before when I set out, and I'm like, okay, these are like 2 or 3 things I want to get done during that time. It just means I don't spend that time thinking about what to do. Um, but also I would say like during the day, just breaking up my day, like calendar management. Again, these are really basic things. You're probably thinking, Sarah, we were hoping for something pioneering and innovative, but you know, it's not groundbreaking. These are just things that you probably already know, but just neglect because when the work gets heavy, you're just kind of like, I just want to get it done. Like when I get it done, I'll rest. But what does it look like for you to like have balance? But also I think the last thing I've done is like creating boundaries in both my professional and personal life. It's hard, right? Because I don't know, I feel like sometimes I want to be everything for everyone, but it's just not sustainable, you know? Sometimes I'm like, oh, can't do that call. It's not critical. Can we do it next week? And oftentimes people are like, yeah, sure. And if it is critical, they'll tell you, but not every single meeting you're going to be in is like business critical, with a caveat of sometimes, you know, again, this is all dependent on like level experience, but generally speaking, I don't feel like every single thing is life or death. And we just need to like have a bit of perspective, I would say.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is the right way to end this amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I think from that last answer, I think the biggest thing I took away from what you just said was intentionality. Intentionality about how you plan your day, about how you take on tasks, just intentionality with your time. Because when you're not intentional, that's when a lot of people can come and take your time, as you said, and you end up doing stuff that's not necessarily business critical because of that lack of intentionality and focus. Um, I loved it. Oh my gosh. People in the chat, did we enjoy this conversation or what? Can I get some claps in the chat, please? Can I get some emojis? Can I get some, oh, I'm loving these. All of that one. Please, please support Sarah and this amazing conversation. All right. Now, we're going into the Q&A bit. Dun, dun, dun. That's like the theme music for Q&A. Dun, dun, dun. A lot of you have different questions in the chat, so I'm now going to be going through them and asking Sarah. If I've noticed that they're similar to the questions that we've asked already, I might skip them. But if you have any further questions or conversations, please feel free to reach out to Sarah on LinkedIn. Is that okay, Sarah? Can I talk to you there?
Yeah, go on then.
Go on then.
Absolutely. You can talk to me on LinkedIn.
She might put boundaries though, because she has to
You
focus.
see, this is what I'm saying. You know, you can't tell the people to
Yeah.
message me on LinkedIn and then scare the people from messaging me on LinkedIn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, feel free.
Brilliant. Okay, so first question for you. You earned 4 promotions in 3 years at Multiverse. What leadership qualities or strategies do you believe were most instrumental in achieving this success?
I feel like we kind of covered this a little bit, but I think that the first thing is like I said again, we're not throwing shade, but like just being really like being good at your job. And what I mean by that, and I say that like it sounds really like simple and straightforward. I think the first step is understanding like what your role and what is expected of you. If you work at a company like Multiverse that's like ever changing and evolving, like always calibrating that, with your manager. Like these are what I think my priorities are. This is how I'm planning on working towards them. Like, does this feel like the right thing? So I would say like that first. And then as a leader, I think um like practicing what you preach. Like I would never, people always say, oh, like never ask people to do what you wouldn't do yourself. Like I just wouldn't. Like I wouldn't like I never expected a high bar from my team and like, fail to live up to that bar. Hopefully if there's anyone from my team, they could attest to that in the chat. But yeah, I feel like just never expecting from people as a leader like what you wouldn't be prepared to do yourself. And I guess that ties into like having a bit of empathy. It's really hard sometimes, right? When you have these conflicting priorities, you've got these goals you need to achieve. Sometimes it can be at the expense of like the well-being of your team. You can accidentally end up putting pressure on people to like get things done. I guess it's like, yeah, like operating with empathy. And I think as well, I don't know, it's hard to say like what are the leadership qualities. Yeah, operating with empathy, yeah, being good at your job, but I don't think that's a leadership quality. I think that's just a quality just generally or something that you should do. Um, I think okay, the big one is use development as a tool to drive results. When I think about the success is like fundamentally like as a leader, a lot of your success that derives from the work your team does. And in terms of like results that your team produces, like having a clear like directive of like this is what we're going after is important, but also like think about how you develop your team to drive those results or to drive those items on your roadmap. And it's something I spent a lot of time thinking about, like formally, how do I develop informally, how can I leverage opportunities to develop my team? For example, like when my skip reports were like, I don't know, doing a presentation, I would like pick up the phone and call them like, hey, that was really great because like you did all these things like really excellently. Like just one thing you might want to think about next time, like, I want you to like consider this thing. So just like leveraging moments to give feedback. It didn't have to wait to a formal thing, like a formal like review. Like I just try to leverage all opportunities to like provide development for the team to the end of driving results.
Well, thank you. Okay, yeah, I hope we answered your question, that person, because that was a lot of meat to take in. Thank you so much. Another question here. Do you think professional qualifications have aided you along your journey, or do you think experience is more important?
I'm biased just because like the professional qualifications I have, like my degree, and obviously I did teach first at my level 7. Um, what is it called? Oh, I should know this. My level 7 like teaching qualification. So I don't have like any professional qualifications as such that like enabled me to get a tech role. Of course, I imagine my professional qualifications have aided towards that. Like at the end of the day, like, you can go and you can learn something, but it's all about the application of learning, plug to multiverse. And so I think the experience for me, like, has been more important, a demonstrated track record of like doing
Yeah.
great work over and over again, as opposed to like, oh, I've got these qualifications.
Okay. And actually, this leads into a question from Rashida. Hopefully that answer helped you out, Rashida, but I just wanted to also share your question here. Currently working as an assistant product manager in banking with 2 years in product, but would like to progress to a product manager role. What tips can you recommend to help with that, i.e. courses, etc.? And I think part of what you said, kind of like demonstrating experience in doing specific projects. Is that correct? Or any other
Yeah,
bits you
so
want
I think earlier on we had a question of like how to get a promotion. So I would like signpost back to that around, you know, having that conversation with your manager, like understanding what skills and competencies are required for you to go from APM to PM. So I think like doing that assessment, that will then help you identify if there are any additional courses that you need to take. Rashida, but I would like encourage you to like, yeah, do that skills assessment of like what skills or competencies do I have, which ones do I need to get to PM, and how can I like leverage the support of my manager or my peers to help get me there.
Perfect. Okay. This next question is quite relevant, BYP. What particular obstacles have you faced in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion within the organization? And how have you and your team managed to overcome these hurdles to create a more inclusive environment? And that question came from Femi.
Well, that's a big question because that's like asking me to speak on behalf of Multiverse. So I gotta reframe the question in terms of like what
Your
I
personal experience, yeah.
yeah. So repeat the question to me from my vantage point, please.
So, as an individual in this company, how have you gone about working with your team to ensure that your team is an inclusive environment, um, despite any potential hurdles that you may face from a DEI perspective?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of things that like I've done. I think one of them is around like inclusive hiring practices. So thinking about how our like hiring like all the I guess points of our hiring process were inclusive when we were hiring at scale. The second thing is around because we're often we were building a learning product for apprentices, like thinking about how we're being inclusive in our design, but specifically within the team, um, I don't want to say it's common sense because I want to downplay inclusion and the importance of it. But I think as a leader, I've always just thought about like, what can I do to make people feel like they belong and they feel seen?
Hmm.
And so I haven't always got it right, but I think I've just always been empathetic and thought, okay, if I was this person, like, how could I make sure everyone feels included in the call? So it could be like how I set up calls at the beginning, where I create opportunities for people to like introduce themselves, or how I might include someone in the conversation. Um, but from a multiverse perspective, there's like lots of great kind of initiatives we've done to drive inclusion. One of them, of course, is setting up the ERGs, which I am like proud to be sort of chair of the Black ERG. And so we'll be posting some more like blogs on our website about like what we're getting up to. I think there's a blog post out there right now about the LGBTQ plus ERG and the work they're doing. So definitely like go and have a look at that on our LinkedIn and on our website as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. There are a lot of questions here, so I'm trying to like go through them and get the ones that are most different from the previous ones. So apologies if I miss your question, but again, please feel free to reach out to the team after this conversation. And so this question is from Daniela, which I think is a bit different. Um, so more around career development again within the company. What do you do if your company isn't scaling and it's difficult to gain the skills there? What sort of thoughts should they have about their career development?
I think this is what I spoke about earlier, right? You know, you asked me why did I say at multiverse, and I was like, well, because there's still been opportunities for me to learn and grow. I think the easy thing to say is like, you know, if there aren't opportunities here, like seek them elsewhere. But it isn't always as easy, right? To just be like, oh, like I'm just gonna like move to another role. I think this is where taking like full ownership of your development is really key. And sometimes the opportunities like don't necessarily exist, but like what does it look like for you to create them? Whether it's like doing work that goes beyond your scope, if you have capacity, and also if you're like already managing your job properly and well. But yeah, I would like in examples or effectively build up your career portfolio. And also perhaps like look for opportunities elsewhere if you're not getting what you want. But even before that step, like I know I keep talking about talk to your manager, it's hard, right? It's something that I've struggled with throughout my whole
Yeah.
career. But I realize when I do, and I have those, and it doesn't have to necessarily be your direct manager, it could be a leader that you trust or you have a relationship with. Like sometimes just having that conversation or look at someone in your company who's recently been promoted, you know, send them
Hmm.
a message, be like, hey, congratulations on your promo. Can we grab a coffee? Like I'm also working or wanting to work towards a promotion and curious to understand what steps you took. I think people sometimes like forget the power of just asking questions. You know, like I said, someone has probably done that before. You know, go on LinkedIn, search in, product manager, the kind of companies you want to work at, then message people like, hiya, so you're a product manager at this company and would like to have a chat. Most of the time people ignore you, but sometimes they say yes. And it's like it only takes one time and one conversation. Also as well, like I listen to a lot of podcasts on product. I said this and I know you're gonna ask me what podcasts they are, but I just save them on Spotify, I'm afraid. Lenny's podcast, that's one I listen to a lot. But yeah, like I listen to a lot of podcasts and just like I just have conversations with people as well.
Yeah. Hopefully that helped you, Daniela. Research, conversations, speak to your manager. I guess try to really dig out that opportunity that exists. Um, I think this is going to be either our last or second to last question. In your experience leading various programs at Multiverse, what strategies have proven effective in identifying and nurturing talent among apprentices, especially those who are often overlooked to ensure they reach their full potential? So if this is in your team, perhaps how do you see opportunities to nurture talent within your team to ensure that they're able to grow effectively in their role and up the ranks?
I would say like knowing your team is really important and knowing what it is that your team needs to achieve. And this is what I talked about, like how do you use development as a tool to drive results? So if you know where you're heading as a team, and you know what the goals are of the team, then you start to kind of like fill it that way of like, okay, what talent do I have in the team that can help support this? Or who do I have who isn't quite there yet? And how can I develop them in order for them to deliver this thing? It's kind of what I've done in the past.
Brilliant. Okay. And the last question is more around, I guess they have three different bits, but I'll ask the middle one. When it comes to job processing, how many steps are there in terms of, I guess, moving between jobs?
I'm not sure I understand the question, I'm afraid.
I'm not gonna lie, neither am I. Mr. I think it's Oluwashi. Can you please maybe clarify your question if there's a bit of time? But um, if not, then I think we can end it there. I'll give you some time if you want to clarify your question, sir. But I think he's okay. In which case, everyone, hey, good day. Is Multiverse a global company with locations in the USA? Oh, do you know that, Sarah?
Yes, we have an office in New York and we offer remote roles, but take a look at our website because it's up to date with all of our live roles. Yeah, and also in the chat you can see there's a link to send your CV if you are interested in roles and opportunities at Multiverse.
Yeah, so there's a link that I believe BYP Network put in, so please feel free to click on that and go. Mr. Oluwashi, if you could please, I guess, connect externally, I think that might be the way to help you out there. But brilliant. Thank you everyone for your time. I know some more questions are flooding in, but we're gonna have to cut it off there. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Sarah. Can we give like hats off to Sarah? Can we just like, can I get all the clap emojis, the smiling emojis? If you want to come off back and just say woo, that's calm too. Woo for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Actually, Sarah, do you have any last
Amazing,
words that
well
you want to
done.
share? Yeah.
Sorry, say again. Do I
Do you have
have
any last words you want to share as we close off?
um okay, one thing I will say is that I was having a coffee with someone earlier and they were asking me like, oh, how are you feeling about the event? I was like, I'm a little bit nervous because sometimes you read the bio and you're like, is that me? Like, are they talking about me? And I think the thing I will say is that like I'm just an ordinary person, just someone who cares deeply about my development and takes ownership. So like when you think about the people who you see as goals, like they aren't necessarily extraordinary. They just have that extra commitment. So I guess like success, whatever that looks like for you, is attainable. If you care enough, are committed enough, to achieve that. That's what I'll say.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else there. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Avina. And a massive kudos to you. You're such an excellent host. I was here cackling the whole time. So thank you so much, Avina.
Happy to be here. Oh, yeah. My name's Obina. I'm not even sure if I even said it. Hi, everyone. Name's Obina. What's up? Well, go on. All right. Hope you have an amazing evening. Have an amazing dinner if you haven't eaten yet. Have an amazing way home if you're on your way home. Thank you, Sarah, so much again. And this has been your webinar. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye.